welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. So by popular demand, and I mean popular because you guys have been begging me to do another one of these ever since I uploaded the last video, today I'm going to be reacting to your rat cages again. So many of you have actually sent your cages in, which is brilliant. I think even more people than last time, which is so great. Obviously because I've had so many submissions, I have quickly read through all of the emails and I've picked some that I think would be interesting to feature in this video. Obviously because I have had hundreds of cages sent in, I can't feature all of them in this video, but I will try and make another one of these videos in the future. But unfortunately I can't feature everyone's cages, so hopefully some of the tips I give to other people in this video are helpful to you and you can apply to your cage too. Before that though, I want to tell you about today's sponsor. So something we all have in common here is we all love rodents, specifically rats and mice, and I love watching videos of other rats and mice and also making my own videos as well. Sometimes I do have things I want to share with you guys that are perhaps a little bit shorter, but I don't want them to disappear. I want you guys to be able to watch them in your spare time. So I've actually partnered with Amino to make my very own stories over on their app. Stories like this one here where I talk you guys through how you can make your cage more enriching for your rats and some things I've done with my cage to make it a lot more fun for them too. So I'm super excited to be making these videos and I'd love for you guys to go over and check out my stories over on the app. I think the format of the stories over on Amino is really unique and it's a great place for me to share exclusive content of my rats and mice and my other animals that I think you guys will really love. They will be shorter style videos of my pets that are really easy to follow, and if you guys enjoy the stories over there I will continue to post them regularly. So if you'd like to go over there and check out my stories, all you have to do is click the link in the description or search for Amino apps in the App Store to download the app. You can find me and my stories over there by searching for Emiology. Make sure you follow me and click the notification bell just to make sure you know when I upload new videos. Just like here on YouTube, anytime you watch my videos over on the app, you will be supporting me, which is really great. So when you've downloaded the app, please make sure you are following me over there and watch the stories that I've created already. So let's take a look at some of the rat cages you guys sent in. One thing I did want to say is I'm so impressed with how many of you got your parents involved. I think that's really great. So whilst my emails load, I am just going to try to get through these as quick as possible. I'm going to try to make a few key points on each cage, just so I can get through as many cages as I can. I think last time I rambled a bit, so I'm going to try to do that, but no promises that it's actually going to work because sometimes I just talk too much. Okay, so the first email is from Mason, and it says, I would love to know if there's anything more I can add or make for them to have an enjoyable life. So firstly, looking at the picture, your cage is a really great size, which is nice. And you've also got plenty of hammocks and baskets and things for them to sleep in, which is really good. One thing I would say with this cage, I see that you've got lava ledges at the back, which is great for them to get from that bottom level all the way up to the top level. But there is quite a gap in the top right hand side. They would be tempted to add lots more bridges and ropes and hammocks. Anything just to make sure if they do fall, I know they've got that shelf to catch them, but you can just pack that area there with a lot more things for them to climb on, like ropes, ladders, bridges. Anything you can shove into that gap there would be great just to make it a bit more full. But overall I think it is a good cage. You've got plenty of things for them to chew on and things for them to interact with. The only thing I would say is just add a lot more things for them to climb on if you can. Okay, so the next email is from Chloe and she says, I have 2 new rats that I got 2 weeks ago. This is my first attempt at their cage. I got the cage around 4 years ago as I kept 2 gerbils in there. Please let me know if there's any improvements I could make. Also I'm having some problems with one of my rats. Sadly I got them from a pet store as it was my only option without travelling ridiculously far, and the workers did say I would have to socialise them, which is fine. However, one of my rats is skittish and scared, one slight move and he runs. He is also having fur loss on the back of his neck and has diarrhoea. I'm not sure what to do as I don't want to traumatise him at a young age and make him scared of me for the rest of his life. I do not think he is eating much either. I'm not sure whether this is due to stress, and nerves or an actual illness. Please help me. So firstly, in terms of them being scared of you, I would just give it a lot of time. Unfortunately with pet store rats you do have to put a lot of hard work in for them to get really tame and comfortable around you, so do just carry on doing what you're doing and don't feel too worried about them not trusting you. It will take time for them to get that bond with you. In terms of the fur loss and the diarrhoea, I would say obviously I'm not a vet and I can't see your rats, so I can't diagnose them or anything like that, so I would definitely recommend taking your rat to a vet if you are concerned and this has been going on for a while. But from looking at your pictures, there is something I can see that may be linked to the diarrhoea. So in one of the pictures you have like a tub of vegetables, and there does seem to be quite a lot of vegetables there. I would say for 2 rats this is probably a bit too much, especially if they are babies. And I can't really see what's in there, but I think I can see some lettuce. I would avoid lettuce with rats because it is so high in water it can cause them to have diarrhoea. So I would say for now, if he is still suffering from diarrhea, take those vegetables out and don't offer them for a few days and see if that helps, but it definitely does look like it could be at least contributing to the problem, and stress could also be playing a part in that as well. In terms of the actual cage itself, I think you've made a really good start with it, considering it's your first time decorating a cage. They've got things to climb on, chew on, hammocks to sleep in, and plenty of things to interact with. Obviously, if you did want to put more things in there, just ropes, more ladders and bridges, you can pack a lot of things into a cage. And something you might want to look into in the future is making some sort of like perspex space like I have in my cage. If the bedding you're finding is being kicked out, that could also be a really good thing to look into for the future. But yeah, I think you've made a really good start with the cage. One thing I would probably add is maybe a Sputnik at the top. You can just start adding more things as time goes along, and hopefully your boys start bonding with you soon, and hopefully his health issues go away. So the next cage is from Katie, and she says, I have 4 male rats, Shadow, Blue, Arrow and Oreo. I'd love for you to pick my cage as I want to improve, as these are my first lot of rats, so I need info lol. Many thanks, Katie. So I picked your cage and I'm going to have a quick look at it. So taking a look at your pictures, the first ones you sent are of your rats and they look so cute. I love his little hand like dangling down. And taking a look at your cage, it's really nice to see you've got plenty of baskets and ropes which I like in there, which is a really good thing. One thing I would say is there is quite a gap between the Sputniks at the top and the floor at the bottom, so I would work on trying to put some fall breakers in there just to make sure your rats don't fall. So you can get some really super long hammocks like this that you can put across the cage just to stop them from falling. And obviously if you did want to buy more ropes like the ones you've got there, that's also a really good thing to put in. Or the IKEA tie hanger ones, if you have an IKEA near you, are brilliant for putting in the middle of the cage just to catch them if they do fall right from the top. I'd hate for them to fall and get injured if they fall all the way down. You've got plenty of things in there for them to chew, which is really good, and you've also got 2 water bottles, which I think is really good just to have just in case one of them does break. One thing I would say is it seems you've put like cardboard at the bottom. One thing I would look into, like with the previous cage, is possibly looking into getting a perspex base. I know with bird cages like this one which you've used, it can be really difficult because you don't get a thick tray at the bottom, so it can be really hard to put bedding in, but I would definitely look into possibly getting like a perspex tray made in the future, just to allow you to put some bedding in there instead of the cardboard base. But apart from that, I think you can put a lot more things in here which would make it really fun for them, but also just to make sure if they do fall from the top, they're not going to be falling and hitting the bottom. But I also love what you've done with the hide and turned it upside down. That's a really cool idea that I've never thought to do, and I do have one of them, so I could also do that for mine too. So the next cage is from Chloe Elizabeth, and she says, I need to add more ropes and get some perspex for the base, but I'd love some help, advice. I'm a new rat mum and I've only had my rats 2 months, but I'm really trying hard to improve so I can give them the best life, as they didn't have the best start as they are rescue rats. So taking a look at your cage, you've got the same cage as me, which is really great. Obviously I'm going to love the cage that I have, and a lot of the things in the cage as well are things that I also use, so they get bonus points from me. But I love the way you've used all of the ropes in the cage. I think that's really good. You've got the IKEA ropes and also a dog rope and those like rope perches. I love the way you've organised these in the cage. I also love the massive green tunnel at the bottom. I think that looks really cool, and I'd love to know where you get one that size because that would be really good for free roam time as well. The only thing I would say is behind the litter tray at the back, there's nothing really between that and the litter tray at the bottom, so if they were to fall, moose, if they were to fall from that litter tray all the way down, there's nothing to catch them, and that is quite a drop. So the only thing I would say is possibly look into getting some hammocks to fill all those gaps just to make it a bit more safe for them. But I think you've done a really good cage so far, and I love all of the things you have in there. So the next cage is from Marianne. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Here's my rat cage. Its brand is Perfect Small Pet Cage. I change it up every now and then, but this is my favourite setup. Here lives 2 boys, hopefully in the near future 2 more. So taking a look at the cage, this is a really good sized cage for 2 rats, and I love the use of natural perches that you have in the cage and natural branches. That's a really good thing to do. Using rat safe woods, I think adding those into the cage is a really nice touch. One thing I would say is possibly think about taking the shelves that come with the cage out. When you get a cage, it can be tempting to use everything that comes with it, but I think if you didn't have some of these shelves in here, it could make a really active layout by hanging like ropes and ladders and bridges, anything like that into the cage. Could make it a lot more active for them, and you could also incorporate these with the branches as well. One thing I would suggest is maybe get some foraging toys for them, just to give them something to do that will really stimulate their brains. You could also put a dig box in there if you did want to keep the shelves in there. The shelf on the right would be a really great place to put a dig box. and they're really cheap and easy to make. I have a video on my channel if you're interested. I think your rats would really appreciate a dig box, and I can like envision one being on that shelf there. So the next email is from Jessie, and she sent the email in for her daughter Ember, and she says Ember is 10 and had to write a research paper on rats before she could get any, and I love the amount of research she's done to get rats. I think it's so important for kids to show their parents how dedicated they are towards the pets, so good job Ember on writing that research paper. I think that's really cool. So my first impression when looking at the cage, I think it's really busy and fun, which is really great, so you're doing a really good job in filling the cage. The only thing I would say looking at the first picture is you've got a bit of a gap where there's nice rainbow bridges, so there's plenty more things you could add in there, so like maybe a space pod or something, but apart from that I think you've done really good in filling the cage with plenty of things to do. One tip I will give you is looking at the picture here, if you are trying to train your rats to be litter trained, I try to use a different bedding in the litter tray as to what you have in the main cage. So you've got this kind of like shredded paper in the main cage. Maybe try to get like a pelleted paper to put in the litter tray. That will really help your rats to distinguish the difference between the litter tray and the cage and where they're supposed to go to the toilet. So if you wanted to do that, you could. So I'm just looking at the picture of you with your rat. He is so cute, and I've just spotted the bending tunnel you have at the top of the cage. One thing you could do to fill that gap I mentioned earlier is zip tie this to the bars just to give your rats something to do whilst they climb up and go into the tunnel. That could be a really nice option to add onto that gap there. So the next one says, this is my rat cage at the moment. I scatter feed my rats and gave them a forage wheel. I put a little bit of food in a bowl just to make sure they all eat. So looking at your cage, I see you've got lots of hammocks and things in there, which is really good. I love the foraging toy you've got in there, the foraging wheel that I have. That's a really good addition to the cage. And the kind of like shelf basket thing you have is really different. I've not seen anyone use that before, so that's a really cool idea as well. One thing I would say is the wheel you have in there is possibly a bit too small. I can't quite tell the exact size of it, but it does look a bit too small compared to the cage. Rats do need a really large wheel just to make sure it is safe and make sure their tails aren't curving and their spines aren't damaged, so this wheel does unfortunately look a bit too small, and if you can't find a wheel in your country that is big enough, then I would suggest just taking this one out and not using it at all, and just making sure your rats get plenty of free roam time, just to make sure their spines aren't injured and they're not running on a wheel that is too small. So yeah, apart from that, I think your cage looks really good. I feel like I say this with every single cage, but the only thing you don't really have in there is ropes and ladders and bridges, so those are really the only things I could suggest to possibly add into your cage, but apart from that, you've got plenty of things in there and it does look really good. I'm just watching the video you sent me and your rats are so cute. Okay, so the next cage is from Olivia, and she says, I'm not done with the cage, I still need to get hammocks and add the following things going to be attached to the hammocks. I'm also waiting until the night before I get my rats to add the bedding. I love you so much, thank you for the opportunity. I'm also going to wash the mats off to get the ink off and stuff, so don't worry about that. So firstly, taking a look at the cage, the first thing I can see is that you have plenty of foraging toys. You've got a parrot one hanging in the top right, which looks really interesting. I'd be interested to see how that kind of functions and if the rats really like that one or not. And I think I can see like a foraging wheel thing as well. And I love the ladder you've got at the top of the cage. I have one similar to that and my boys really love it too. One thing I would say is the wheel you have at the bottom. Unfortunately, this is going to be too small. Maybe when they're babies they will be able to use it, but they will quickly outgrow this and it will unfortunately be too small for them, so I would definitely look into possibly just taking that wheel out and not using it. Another thing is the litter tray in the back corner. I'm not too sure because of like the perspective of things how big that actually is, but it does potentially look a bit too small. Some animals, if the litter tray is too small, they won't use it, so maybe look at getting them a bigger corner litter tray for that back corner. But yeah, apart from that, I think once you've added the bedding in and all the hammocks and stuff, I think it will be a really great first cage for your rats. Okay, so the final cage is from Mika, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They said, sorry it's a lot of text, you don't need to read everything, so I'll just read bits and kind of summarise the whole email. I have 2 cretinations and 10 rats in total, 7 females and 3 males. At the moment all of the units are separated since one of the males doesn't get along with other rats, and I'm currently introducing 2 new rehomed rescue girls to the female mischief. The females are in the left cretination, currently 5 in the top and 2 in the bottom, and the males are in the right cage, 1 in the top and 2 in the bottom. Most of their things are either self-made, repurposed or bought second-hand, so it's a bit hard to make theme setups, but fortunately the rats don't care. So taking a look at the first picture, I love how they look side by side, and I wanted to include these cages in my video because I think they're a really good example of how you can pack cages full of plenty of things for rats to do. So I think this picture is for the females, And the first thing I'm looking at is your rat kind of like hanging on the side of the cage. She's probably just been escaping and is coming back from her adventure, so that really made me laugh. But the next thing I see is this wine rack you've got. Again, all these repurposed things that you wouldn't think to use for rats can actually make really good items. So I love that you've got this wooden wine rack in the middle. I think that's really fun for them to climb on. I also see that you've kind of made like a hammock out of a bucket and wrapped like fleece around it. That's a really unique idea that I've never really seen anyone else do, so I think that's really cool as well. So moving down to the bottom section of your cage for your other girls, I love the dig box you have in there. I can't quite see what substrate you've used, but I love that you've got a dig box in there. I love the ropes and the wooden ladder and everything else in there. I love the little grass hut at the front, but the main thing in here that caught my eye was the dig box. So again, moving on to the boys' cage, you've got some more tiles in there, which is really nice. Giving them cardboard boxes is also a really good idea. You don't have to spend too much money, you can get cardboard boxes for free, and it's just a really great idea to give your rat something to chew on and also something to hide in as well. So moving on to the boys' cage, straight away I see that you've got more tiles in there, which is really good. And something I've never ever seen anyone else use is this children's toy, the one where you have to move the wooden beads around. The ones that are always in like doctor's surgeries and things like that. So I've never seen anyone else use this in their cage, so I think that's a really interesting idea. Apart from that, they've got plenty of places to sleep, plenty of hammocks, and also a basket with some fleece in. I can also see some natural woods in there on the shelf and also at the back, which is also a really nice touch for them to have something natural to chew on. And I can also see a rope as well, which is really good. Moving down to the other boys section of the cage, again you've got lots of natural branches in there, which is a really nice thing to put in for them. And I love the cute little basket you've got hanging from the shelf. I think that's really cute. So yeah, overall I just thought all of these different cages were really nice. You've done something different with each individual cage. And when you have to split your rats up into two separate cages, sometimes it can be hard to find enough for each rat in that individual section to do, but I think you've managed that. And I think each individual section of your cages looks really great. So that is it for today's video, guys. Thank you to each and every one of you that sent your cages in. I'm sorry if you're disappointed that your cage didn't get featured, but I will make another one of these videos in the future, and hopefully some of the tips I said about other people's cages you can also apply to your cage as well. Also, don't forget to check out my profile and my stories over on Amino and follow me over on there. And make sure you are subscribed to see any more animal content from me, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye!